Hello everyone, today we are going to be reading Lucky Strike Chapter 10. So, let's get into it. One luck-filled week later, Nate fairly sailed through the Sweet Magnolia RV and trailer park on his bike as he headed his way over to Jen's. Tonight was the kickoff of the weekend-long Billy Bowlegs Festival, culminating in the Blessing of the Fleet. All week, the town had been getting ready to celebrate the founder of Paradise Beach, the pirate Billy Bowlegs. All weekend, the town would be abuzz with arts and crafts, shrimp boat races, crab races, reenactments of the day Billy Bowlegs washed up on the shores of what is now Paradise Beach, and, of course, one long, continuous fish fry. He had never been to a carnival, with its rides and cotton candy and games. Grandpa was always busy getting the boat ready for the Blessing of the Fleet, and Jen hated crowds, but this year, Nate Harlow was going to the carnival with Ricky Sands and a whole mess of equally popular friends. He smiled into the cloud-studded sky and fingered the lucky rabbit's foot in his pocket. He found Jen reading on the back porch of the Church of the One True Redeemer and Everlasting Light, Mercy and Goodness curled up in her lap. "Hey, Jen," he said, parking his bike and mounting the steps to the porch. "You want to come with me to watch them set up the carnival?" She barely glanced up from her book. Too hot. "Come on, Jen," he pleaded. "It'll be fun. It'll be different." You know I don't like different, Jen snapped, hard as a turtle. Nate sighed. "How long are you going to stay mad at me?" Pink splotches bloomed on her neck and face. She pushed her glasses up on her nose. "I'm not mad. I don't care if you go to that stupid carnival with Ricky Sands and his merry band of Philistines. Nate pinched his nose and pitched his voice high. "I beg to differ," he said in the almost perfect imitation of Jen, and one of her favorite comebacks. He watched for a smile. He knew for a fact that he was the only one who could get away with imitating her and not get socked in the belly. No smile came. Without looking at him, she said, "We need to go to our dune and watch for the loggerheads." She scratched the chin of the tabby named Mercy. "My calculations of the currents and ocean temperatures and tides show they should start coming in any night now. Plus tonight is the first night of the full moon." Nate frowned. "I've never been to the carnival, Jen. I want to do what other kids are doing for once." An awkward silence grew between the two friends. Finally, he said, "I'll go down to the beach with you another night." "Do what you want," she said, not looking at him. Goodness glared at Nate from Jen's lap, and if the cats had not curled up in the book she had been reading, he might have wondered at the title, Test Your Luck. That night, Nate fingered the money in his pocket that Grandpa had given him for the carnival. "Don't spend it all at once," Grandpa said, "and stay away from those games of luck. They're run by riffraff. They're just out to steal your money." Grandpa's words did not find a place of prominence in his mind, because Nate's mind and nose and eyes were filled with the glory of the carnival. Flashing, spinning lights, the smell of popcorn, peanuts, sugar, and fried grease. Anywhere he looked, his eyes took in the colors of brightly painted rides and all sorts of prizes dangling from the tent eaves. Everyone from miles around crammed into Billy Bowlegs Park. Ricky Sands jabbed him in the ribs with his elbow. "Better shut your mouth, Sparky, or a fly will get in," he said. He snapped his mouth shut and trotted behind Ricky and Connor and the bunch of the other boys. They shoved their way over to the tilt-a-whirl. Nate's heart bounded into his throat as he climbed into the half-cup seat with Ricky and Connor. By the end of the ride, it wasn't just his heart squirming in his throat. "You're green as seaweed," Connor said, laughing. "If you're gonna puke, get away from me," one of the other boys said. Nate swallowed hard and shook his head. "I'm okay." He could just see Jen rolling her eyes. "Look it," Ricky said. "They got a monster masher here." Nate forced himself to look where Ricky pointed. A tall, silver, rocket-shaped ride shot screaming passengers high into the air, then jerked them back down again. Up and down, the screaming, crying, strapped in, unable to get away passengers flew. His legs quivered like jellyfish. Awesome, the boys said in reverent voices. Nate closed his eyes and pictured Jen atop their dune, the tallest dune in Paradise Beach, the sea oats rattling in the wind, watching the water's edge shimmering on the moonlight for signs of the turtles. Right then, he wished like anything he were right there beside her. Ricky thumped him so hard on his back he almost fell to the ground. "This'll make a man out of you." Nate sighed and trailed behind the boys as they made their way through the crowd over to the Monster Masher. He watched as the freed passengers staggered and wobbled from the ride. Coach Hull smiled weakly at the boys, then threw up behind the bushes. Nate felt the corn dog he'd eaten rise up from his stomach in sympathy. "Whoa," Connor said. "Did you see Coach?" The boys laughed and poked and made retching sounds, which did not help Nate's effort to keep his corn dog where it belonged. He shuffled forward in line, shuddering and shaking. Ricky and Connor bought their tickets and raced over to the giant heaving machine. "How old are you, kid?" Nate opened his eyes and looked up past a big round belly to a cigar just jutting out the mouth of the ticket taker. 11, sir," he said. The man shifted his cigar to the other side of his mouth and tapped the cardboard hand with his cane. "See this here?" Nate nodded. "You gotta be this tall to go on this ride." He shoved Nate over to the hand, which hovered a good half-foot above his head. "Too short," the cigar man declared to one and all. "Can't go on this ride, kid." In a lower voice, he said, "Sorry." Nate shrugged and waved to Ricky and the other boys. They laughed and shook their heads as they were strapped in one by one. He forced himself to walk away in feet-dragging with disappointment kind of way. What he really wanted to do was skip. For the first time in his life, being short had brought him luck. Nate wandered over to the ring toss. 5 rings, 5 chances to win, folks. Only $1 to win one of these fabulous prizes. Coach Hull, still a little green around the gills, tossed 1, then 2, 3, then 4 rings into the air. Each landed neat as you please over the neck of the milk bottles. He rubbed his hands together and winked at a beaming Miss Trundle. "The next one's for you, Trudy." He tossed the 5th wooden ring. It wobbled and wavered in the air. Nate held his breath. Coach Hull and Miss Trundle held their breath. The ring fell with a tiny clink. Miss Trundle clapped her chubby hands together. "Oh, my Dawn, you are so talented." Coach grinned and puffed out his chest. "Pick your prize, Trudy." Nate was not a bit surprised when Miss Trundle chose a large pink cat with diamond sparkly eyes. She hugged it to her pillowy chest. "How about you, young fella?" the man behind the counter said. "You want to try? It's just $1." Coach Hull frowned. "Nate, you're not exactly good at this sort of thing." He looked at the wooden rings the man twirled on his arm, and the man grinned. "Might be your lucky night, huh, boy?" Lucky. Nate looked at the L and Y burned into his palm of his hand. He rubbed his thumb over the rabbit's foot in his pocket. He stepped up and slapped his dollar bill on the sticky wooden table. "Yes, sir, it just might be." And it was. Every ring he tossed fairly snagged its way to the nearest bottle and settled around its shoulders with a happy sigh. And he was not just lucky at the ring toss. Oh no. His hand knew exactly which yellow rubber ducky bobbing through the circular creek had the best prize numbers. He guessed right down to the ounce of weight of the fat lady. By the time Nate made it to the baseball throw, a crowd trailed behind him, including Ricky Sands and his gang. Jinx Malloy stood before the table, smacking the baseball in her hand. She narrowed her eyes at the rows of miniature clowns standing straight as soldiers 7 feet away. "All you gotta do, little lady, is knock down 4 of those fellas," a tattooed man said as he took her money. Jinx glared at the man. She pulled her cap down tight on her head and flipped her braids behind her shoulders. She spit on the ground and let loose a throw that could have gone all the way to Wichita. The clowns didn't stand a chance. "That one," the tattooed man cried. He tossed Jinx another ball. "Think you could knock down another one?" She did. She knocked down the next one, too. The crowd clapped. "Come on, Jinx," Nate said. "Just one more." Jinx wound up her arm as tight as a tick and grinned. She took aim at one particularly goofy clown and let the ball fly. The ball smacked the clown right in its grinning face. Thwack! Half the clown's hat popped off. The clown wobbled and tilted. The crowd clapped. But the clown did not fall. It popped back up, listing a bit to one side. "Aw, tough luck, honey," the tattooed man said, grinning. "It's rigged," Jinx said. "I hit that stupid clown hard enough to break his face." The tattoo man ignored her outburst. "Who's next?" he asked the crowd. Ricky Sands strutted up to the table and handed over his money. "I'll show you how it's done," he said, winking at Jinx. And it looked like he would, too. He knocked down the first and second clowns with barely a thought. Ricky grinned at Jinx and wound up for his third toss. The whack! The ball hit the clown square in its grinning mouth. It didn't budge. The crowd gasped. Ricky stared in disbelief. "No way!" Connor called from the sidelines. "That clown should have gone down." "Yeah, it's rigged," someone cried. The tattooed man glared at the grumbling crowd. "You pays your money, you takes your chances," he said. "Who's next?" he asked, surveying the crowd with narrowed eyes. Ricky grabbed Nate by the shoulders and shoved him toward the table. "He is." The man looked at the small boy standing before him, his arms full of stuffed animals, lightsabers, and a giant inflatable hammer. The man grinned. "Looks like you're the big winner tonight," he said. "Care to try your luck here?" Nate hesitated. Maybe he'd used up all his luck for one night. Was luck like that? But then he saw it, hanging in the rafters among the stuffed bears and giraffes, and the plastic rifles and guitars, a magnificent, bright blue sombrero with a red trim. His grandpa had one almost like it years ago until he lost it in a tornado. Yes, the same tornado that snatched up Nate's hound dog. Oh, he could just imagine the smile on his grandpa's face if he won that sombrero. "I reckon," he said. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Bobby Louder and all the little Louders clapped and chanted, "Sparky! Sparky!" Nate handed the stuffed animals to Jinx and the rest of his booty to Ricky Sands. He handed his last dollar bill to the tattooed man. The man handed him a ball. "Whenever you're ready," he said. Nate looked at the rows of grinning clowns. The baseball grew warmer and warmer in his hand. He took aim and threw. "That's one down," the tattooed man cried. He handed Nate the next ball. "That's two down." And then, "That's three down." The tattooed man spit a stream of chewing tobacco into the dirt. He studied Nate through narrowed eyes. Applause peppered the evening air. "Come on, Nate," Jinx called. He glanced her way and smiled. With the fourth ball in his hand, he took aim at the clown with half a hat. If he didn't know better, he could have sworn it tried to hide behind one of the other clowns. "No, you don't," he said under his breath. He let loose the ball. It shot straight as an arrow right smack into the face of that clown. It fell backwards, but then, just like before, bounced right back up. "No way!" the crowd cried. The tattoo man grinned. The ball wasn't done. Oh no, it smacked against the canvas backdrop, ricocheted forward, and hit that clown in the back of the head. This time, when the clown fell down, it did not get up. Bobby Louder and the little Louders jumped up and down, yelling, "Nate won! Nate won!" Coach Hull grinned. "I taught him all he knows," he said, and Miss Trundle said over and over, "Such a nice boy." Jinx Malloy raised her hand for a high five, which Nate happily slapped. He turned to the tattooed man. "I'd like my prize, please." The tattooed man scowled. "Pick one," he snapped. He pointed to the sombrero. "That one," he declared. He couldn't wait to get home and give his grandpa this hat. Ricky Sands raised Nate's arm high in the air and shook them. "You're the champ, Sparky." The sleeves of Nate's shirt slid down his arms. The crowd gasped. "Whoa," someone behind him said. "Would you look at that?" The crowd stared wide-eyed at the lightning marks twisting and winding their way around and up his arm. He dropped his arms. The littlest Louder stepped up and touched Nate's scarred arm. "I want some of that luck," he said. "I don't think..." Before he could finish, the rest of the Louders and even some of the bigger kids surrounded him. They shoved their dollar bills into his hands. "Win a prize for me," they demanded. And Nate did, turn after turn, dollar after dollar. He knocked the stuffing out of those clowns. Within 15 minutes, the tattooed man didn't have a single prize left. The bigger kids slapped him on the back, the girls smiled shyly, and the little kids pulled and climbed on his arms and legs. He felt 10 feet and 8 inches tall. The tattooed man pushed the crowd away, shoved his face close to Nate's, and growled, "How did you do that, kid?" He shook his head. "I don't know what you mean." "Some kind of trick up your sleeve?" He grabbed Nate by the arms and shook him, like he was trying to shake something loose. "Where are you hiding it?" The blue sombrero fell to the ground. Just when he thought the man was going to shake his arms out of the sockets, Miss Trundle smacked the tattooed man in the back of his head with her sizable purse. "You get your hands off of him, you hooligan!" Coach Hull rushed in. "Yes, unhand the boy!" Miss Trundle shepherded Nate away from the tattooed man, sweeping up the sombrero with her other hand. But not before he heard the man yell, "You stole from me, kid! You stole! You haven't seen the last from me!" All right, that's it for Chapter 10. We'll read Chapter 11 next time. See you then!